Hi everybody, welcome to this month's edition of Civil Engineering Today. I'm your host, Reed Brockman, and this month we're going to be talking about professional engineering, what it means to be a professional engineer. And we've got someone I've known for a very long time, Paul Tyrrell. He is the Chief Civil Engineer for STV, and on top of that, he is a licensed professional engineer and a licensed professional surveyor, and he is on the Board of Professional Registration for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks, Reed. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so our history goes way back to the beginning of time, and we were working together. I was just a young engineer fresh out of school, and you were a co-op when we first started working together.
Yeah, we were inspecting bridges together.
Yep, gotta love it. I'm still there, still inspecting away.
Right.
But I want to talk today about what it means. What does it mean to be a professional engineer?
Well, to be a professional engineer is a nomenclature you get after you pass a licensure exam administered by what's called the National Council of Examiners for Engineers and Surveyors. They prepare the engineer exam for Massachusetts, and when one has enough experience, education, they then are allowed to take an exam, and once they pass that step, they're allowed to call themselves a professional engineer and include the letters PE at the end of their name as a professional engineer.
Yeah, so the website for them was NCEES?
NCEES is the organization, NCEES.org is the organization that represents the 50 states as well as the various other American properties like Puerto Rico and Guam, and they prepare the exam and administer it, and they score it for us.
So if somebody just can't call themselves an engineer, right?
Well, we hear the word engineer used quite a bit. However, to properly be called an engineer, you actually have to be licensed as one through the Commonwealth, through the Board of Registration of Engineers, and you have to pass an exam.
So it'll be just civil engineers or all kinds of?
Actually, no, the board oversees over 16,000 engineers of various types, nuclear engineers, petroleum engineers, chemical engineers. There are a list of 26 different engineering disciplines that we oversee licensure for.
Okay, so we're, in particular, but you oversee it for everything. You're on the board for all those kinds of...
Yes, the board is made up of 10 different members, 3 of which are land surveyors, 6 of which are engineers, and 1 is a public member. And we represent a broad spectrum of engineers and land surveyors that we oversee. We have chemical engineers, a mechanical engineer, a fire protection engineer, all of which provides us a broad background of engineers in which to support our licensure efforts.
So if people get a job, right, and they get there when they're young and they're not in what they can't really call themselves an engineer yet. When they become an engineer, when they get that professional engineering license, do they take on more responsibility? What exactly in terms
Well, yes, the Board of Registration is, we're a consumer protection agency actually, and so what we do is we make sure that the public is protected by proper practice, and only a professional engineer can stamp and complete the designs of projects. So as an engineer goes through his career, through co-op, graduation, and then through training, which is another certification that the board recognizes. It's called an engineer in training. His experience level is supposed to be growing as he matriculates through his career. So there's growing responsibilities. It culminates at the end with the designation as a professional engineer and the ability to manage and oversee and provide final certifications to drawings and designs of various kinds.
So before you become a professional engineer, you become this engineer in training.
Yes.
What do you have to go through? How does that work?
Again, it's examinations. You generally take it in and around your senior year of college or shortly thereafter graduation. It's an exam that checks your educational background. It provides the basis of which there's a clear opinion that you are at the starting point of your engineering career.
Right, so that one you don't have to go and show work that you've done and prove yourself. You're just taking an exam.
To be professional engineers is what they call the three-legged stool. There's engineering, there's examination, experience, and education. For your EIT, it's largely just an education-based exam.
Does it have to be, like, to get a professional engineering license, when you take that what's it called, the fundamentals of engineering exam?
Yes.
Do you have to go through an engineering curriculum to do that? Can anybody take that?
No, you have to be. You have to show that you've graduated from an engineering curriculum.
Okay, so it's not just anybody. Someone who just one day can't just wake up, study for the test.
No.
Go into it.
Hopefully, it wouldn't be that easy to pass if they had done so.
Right, that's true. That's true. It's kind of random. So what is that test though? It's a one-day test, and what kind of things would be on it? Is it different for every type of?
Yes, it's generally geared toward the various disciplines. In other words, not only that, you can select your focus. The first half of the exam is in the morning. It's 4 hours, and it's a broad spectrum of engineering disciplines. It's generally the same for all disciplines.
Everybody gets the same thing.
In the afternoon, however, it's discipline specific: structural, mechanical, electrical, whichever your expertise is in, and that allows the exam to focus in on your expertise.
So after you get that one, how many years until you can take that professional engineering license?
It depends on your education and the number of years of experience. For instance, if you have a master's degree in an engineering curriculum that's ABET accredited, you could sit for licensure within 3 years, and it changes depending on your degree and whether or not it's recognized.
Right. And is there any way you can get that professional engineering license without taking that?
No, there's no way to become registered as an engineer in Massachusetts without examination.
Oh, that's good. Don't want that happening.
Well,
so, but without the EIT, or everybody, no matter what, you have to take it?
If you have 20 years of experience and acceptable engineering credentials, you will be allowed to not have to take the EIT, but you will still have to take what's called the Principle in Practice. It's the PE exam. Okay,
so you can get out of it, but that's 20 years.
You can only get out of the EIT.
Experience.
You cannot get out of the PE exam. That's mandatory. You have to take that exam.
Yep. So that test, it's so how does that, like on a test day, how does that work?
The PE is very similar to the EIT. It's an 8-hour exam, multiple choice, 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the afternoon, about 160 questions if I'm not mistaken. It's a bit grueling. I took it, and it took everything out of me in those 8 hours.
Yeah, I got to admit I'm playing a little bit dumb because I also took it.
Yes.
I'm a structural engineer, so. But and it is grueling. But it's something. It shows. So when you get this, I mean, this is what I really feel is that this test really shows it means something. Because it's not easy, because it's hard to get. Do you find that? Do you find with the people who are going for it, like people who have it, hold a real sense of?
Yes, we have a responsibility to the public. That's ultimately the board's responsibility, is to oversee the public's health, safety, and welfare. We feel as though the engineers that are registered best demonstrate that. There's a code of ethics required in engineering in itself, and it's instilled in an engineer that his ultimate responsibility is to the public. So I'm proud to say that I'm an engineer, and I'm proud that there are engineers that continue to pursue to become registered.
So with the land surveyor side, let's talk about that one for a minute, because it's easy to talk about the engineering, but land surveyors, they're becoming fewer and further between, is that what?
Yes, land surveying is the number of registered land surveyors continues to drop. It's a wonderful profession. I believe that anybody coming out of school, or even with limited technical education, would really enjoy that work. The numbers are dwindling, unfortunately. It's got something to do with the lack of universities that teach that. However, most of the surveyors that I know that have started it, they fell into the business and truly enjoyed it, and I would encourage anybody to follow up on that profession.
I'm feeling like a lot of the surveyors that I meet actually teach too, more and more, because there are so few, probably.
Well, I'm sure what we have is a lot of the surveyors that are very prominent in the industry are highly recognized. They work, they teach, they're very involved in the profession, and we see those guys more often. However, there are 900 registered land surveyors in Massachusetts, and there's a lot of guys that just work out in the field and work throughout the state of Massachusetts that we may not see or know, but they're out there doing good work and enjoying what they do, I think.
Yeah, I think it's because I see from MALSE. What's MALSE? Is the
MALSE is the Massachusetts Association of Land Surveyors for Massachusetts Association for Land Surveyors and Civil Engineers. However, it is predominantly a land surveying based organization.
Right, because most, I mean, the big organization, of course, is the Boston Society of Civil
Yes.
Engineers for civil engineering in our area, which is just a little small part of the American Society of Civil Engineers. This one I can talk about a little
Yeah.
bit because I was president. So. But so the people that are taking the professional engineering exam, there's a whole bunch of paperwork that goes into this. What do they have to collect? Because this is something I think that's really good to know, is that you can't just go through the beginning part of your career. You really got to be conscientious of documenting things.
Yes, for the normal applicant that applies, he's generally got a 4-year engineering degree from an ABET accredited education institution, and what's required is a minimum of 4 years of growing responsibility in the engineering profession. So they need to show that they've done that through calculations, through the preparation of reports, through the preparations of drawings, engineering drawings of various types. So it's prudent for all engineers as they go through their career to maintain some records of some really interesting and complicated engineering efforts they've done, because they take their transcripts, and there's a number of references that are required. It's about a 12 or 14-page application when everything's said and done, and they have to have their engineering training certificate, and so there's a lot of documentation that comes together to create a complete application for registration.
I know I took it a long time ago, and I don't know if it's still the same. Do you still need to collect up what they say, a pound of paper?
It's not quite a pound. It's something that demonstrates your experience adequately for the board to review it. I don't know that it says anywhere about a pound. I know that was what we thought of when we were young engineers. That was the rule of thumb.
Catchphrase. Right.
I will say that I've seen people submit more than a pound, and I've seen people submit less than a pound. But
it kind of depends on what you do.
Right, I review somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 applications a month, so I've seen the full range. Yes, the board meets monthly, 12 times a year at minimum. However, we do meet other times for there's interviews. Some candidates are required to be interviewed, and all land surveying applicants are required to be interviewed. So we have occasions where we have to come in for interviews. The board does investigations. Sometimes there are special meetings for that. So we meet at minimum of 12 times a year, but it's generally more than that.
And who are the people that would have to come in for an interview?
All land surveying applicants are required to submit for an interview. I had to submit for an interview when I pursued my license as a land surveyor. It's pretty challenging. I sat across from our current board president, Dennis Drum, and they make sure that you have the technical expertise to sit for the exam. And they make sure they do it very good. And I remember it being one of the more nerve-wracking moments in my career was sitting in the room waiting to be interviewed.
I mean, I just picture like in the movies, you know, where like that one person who hasn't graduated has taken that test and sitting by himself in that row of people staring down. Is it like that? Like 5 people sitting in front of you?
It's generally 3. It's generally 3 surveyors that sit across from you, and they review your examples of your experience, and they ask you some poignant questions about surveying and situations that you may encounter yourself in, and how do you address those.
And so now the actual exam itself, say, for example, if you're a civil engineer, what would that test be like?
Well, we talked about that a few minutes ago. That's an 8-hour exam, 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the afternoon. It's multiple choice. The Surveyors is a little bit interesting in that regard, as it's a 6-hour exam. The first 6 hours it's national component, but there's a 2-hour state-specific portion. So Surveyors and engineers have a little bit of a different type exam from each other.
Yeah. What about the structurals?
Well, structurals now have what's called a 2-day exam, or I should say it's a 16-hour exam. So it's 2 days, it's 8 hours each, 16 hours, and it tests what's called lateral and horizontal engineering. Horizontal being gentlemen like yourselves that are structural bridge engineers. And then there's also the test, the other 8 hours is lateral, which is, it's just the opposite. Horizontal is the bridges, and lateral is
or is it?
buildings?
Oh wait, it's gravity load. One of them's gravity load, vertical gravity loads. Then the other one's like seismic.
Horizontal and lateral, and
right.
the more difficult part that us New England engineers struggle with is the seismic.
Right, because even though, I mean, New England is a seismic zone somewhat, it's not a really high-level seismic zone.
California and other states that are much more seismically involved are the ones that started this advanced licensure requirement. It's now the norm across the country, and so it's a pretty challenging exam. I know a number of folks that I work with at STV have gone through it, and they've struggled, and however they've persevered. The exam rate passes about 67%
for the civil.
No, I'm sorry, for the structural. I believe it's about 67%, and it's about 69% for civils.
Oh, I thought it was lower for that.
It could be.
I thought it was like something nasty, like 40 something.
I could be off.
Yeah, but at any rate, you prepare this package, you got this stack of paper, and you got all your recommendations, and you broke your whole life out line by line of what you did on some kind of a small period, and give a sample of work from every period, and you turn this in. How long does it take until you can take the actual exam at that point?
Generally, it takes about 2.5 months for an application to be processed. It comes in waves and cycles as we get close to the exams. The exams are twice a year, April and October. We get quite a bit in the January area where applicants are rushing to be prepared for the April exam. So it's very cyclic. We get heavily hit in the first few months before an exam period.
Yes, I figured that'd be kind of grueling for you.
So. Yes, the applications increase in frequency for sure.
Where does the test itself come from? Where do questions come from?
The questions come from subcommittees for NCEES. We talked about that a few minutes ago. NCEES prepares all of the exams. The questions themselves are prepared by various committees. So there is, for instance, you and I are civil engineers. There's a civil engineering committee, and they get together once or twice a year, and they have folks that go into a room and generate questions, and they review their existing pool of questions, and they take ones that are no longer relevant out, and they continue to feed the machine where they continue to increase the pool of engineering questions that are available for licensure. And then every time there's an exam, those questions are analyzed by NCEES, and they do a very thorough analysis to make sure that the questions are fair and that each one is suitable for use and that there are no statistical anomalies associated with the particular question.
So, I mean, you pass, and what do you get when you pass?
You get a little card in the mail that says that you're a registered professional engineer, and then you're able to go out and get your own little stamp, which I'm sure you have, like I do.
It's up on a shelf.
And that's about it. You don't get, you get a diploma, I should say, as well for your wall.
All right.
So you get something nice to put on your wall, you get something nice to put in your wallet, and you get the personal satisfaction of knowing that you've pretty much reached the culmination of a lot of years' efforts.
And then on the flip side, what happens if you don't pass?
Well, if you don't pass, I guess what you don't pass is you can reapply. However, I would hope that everybody that doesn't pass goes back, works hard, studies, figures out what they may have struggled with, and come back again and give it another try.
Can you appeal it?
I don't know. For the most part, the process is fairly well vetted, and I don't know the success rate of appealing a question to the national board. If you were really down to one question,
right.
I'm not sure your success rate on that, but I will say that
people probably try.
I don't know about that because the NCEES handles our board as our exam nationally for the board.
Yep.
And so we don't really see the actual exams. We only see the results that NCEES sends us.
That makes sense. So people taking it, what if you didn't go, like you have an excellent education from a foreign university, how do you get accepted into taking the
Foreign
test?
applicants submit through NCEES, and NCEES does a service for the Massachusetts board where they take the foreign applicant's degree and they compare it to, again, what we call an ABET accredited education. And so NCEES does that for us. They compare it and they send us a report that says whether or not the foreign degree is equivalent to what we consider to be the appropriate degree, an ABET accredited degree.
Okay, so that makes total sense. All right, now, I know there's another part to your job altogether, and this is where someone's engineering practice is questioned. What happens if the board has sent something saying that someone, improperly designed something?
Well, one of the board's responsibility is to investigate claims of practice. And the board has a complaint subcommittee that does that analysis, and so the process generally involves, very loosely, that somebody would make a complaint. The board would do an initial investigation to see if there was merit. If so, it would go in for investigation, and then there's a process that goes on from there. And it culminates with a decision either as to no finding, or or there's a prosecution, or there's some form of an agreement made with the person that the complaint was lodged against.
What if someone doesn't even have a license and they start?
That is a number of that is some of the complaints that the subcommittee that the board tackles quite frequently, or has tackled a number of times. Folks that have professed to be registered engineers, however they're not, and the board goes after them pretty strongly, because that's a practice issue. The public's not protected. Somebody is telling the public that they are a registered engineer, that they've had experience in education, and in fact, if they're not registered, they haven't met those qualifications.
Yeah, that would actually really bug me. So,
and it should bug the person that was hired, that hired them to perform a service with them.
Right, definitely. Right. All right, so we're actually running out of time. Believe it or not, time flies on this show.
Yeah.
But Paul, thank you very much for coming in today. And if someone wanted to see the website, I know we said ncees.org.
ncees.org is the website that you can visit to get information about licensure, and the examinations, and the process. And
there's another website for I don't know what it is, but if you typed in the Massachusetts
Board of Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors, there's a website that lists.
You can check everybody's license. You can type in names, type it in by town.
Yes, if a consumer wants to check to see whether or not somebody is currently licensed and whether or not there's been any complaints lodged against them, they can visit the board's website and either enter their license number or their personal information, and the status of their license will come right up.
That's great. That's great stuff.
I think it's helpful for the consumer.
All right. Thanks, Paul. And I know before we go for the end of the show, I just got a couple announcements we got to make. The Future City competition is coming up fast. If we've got anybody who is a STEM professional, doesn't mean just an engineer, anybody who's had a career in the STEM professions, we have a really big day coming up on January 31st at Northeastern University. That is the Future City competition. People are also welcome to come to the Curry Center. It's going to be going from 8:30 in the morning all the way till 4 in the afternoon that day. And we need as many volunteers as we can. I've estimated that I need 120. The place to go is www.engineeryourfuture.org for that. And also the Model Bridge Contest will be the week after that. That'll be the 7th of February. And you were involved in that from the very beginning, actually. Yeah,
I worked on that for a number of years for BSE, going to a number of the Boston high schools.
Yep,
I enjoyed that.
21 years this year. And that'll be on February 7th. We're going to be smashing bridges made out of chopsticks this year. And it's going to be a great competition. And we can use volunteers for that, too. And that's about it. Future City teams, you got to get your sheets turned in this week. Your Sim Cities are due. And your the information sheet has to be turned in this week. And thank you very much, everybody. And I'll see you next month on Civil Engineering Today.